Hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here tonight. This is Wednesday, June 26th. Every month I do a free Q&A where I get a chance to meet with all of you and talk with you about unschooling and answer all of your questions. This is the meeting that I wish that I would have had when I first started unschooling 5 years ago, because when I first started, I didn't know anyone else who was unschooling. I didn't know anyone else who was experimenting with these ideas of giving our children educational freedom. And I wish that I would have had someone to talk to. And so I'm grateful to be able to be here with you guys and answer whatever questions you may have. I don't have any, special presentation for you. This really is an opportunity for you to ask whatever questions that you may have. And I will do my best to answer as many of them as I can before 9 p.m. After 9 p.m., or if we run out of questions before 9, I'll go ahead and take questions on TikTok. I'm also live on TikTok, but I'm going to take the questions from the Zoom first, and then afterwards I'll address any questions on TikTok. All right. So if you have a question, you're more than welcome to unmute yourself and ask your question. Or if you like, you can also type your question in the chat. That way I can make sure to get to everyone's questions and I won't miss anything. So would anyone like to go first?
Hi, I have a question. I want to know how the school program works, and I would like information about it. And do the kids have to like return homework, or I don't have any information about the program. The school, I can remember the name. The one you pay $350 per year.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I run a private school called PAX Academy, PAX Academy. It is a private school for unschoolers. So it is a registered and accredited private school. And that means that in most states, when you enroll with a private school, you're complying with the compulsory attendance laws of your state. And in a lot of states, that means that you're exempt from a lot of the additional testing, reporting, evaluations, portfolios, a lot of that extra stuff that some states have for homeschoolers and unschoolers. And so we are not a traditional school by any sense. We really are a school for unschoolers. So you are welcome to educate your children in whatever way that you believe is best. But of course, we do advocate and promote for self-directed education. So there aren't classes that are required. There aren't tests. There aren't quizzes. There is no homework or worksheets or workbooks, unless your child enjoys that kind of thing, and then they're more than welcome to do that. But in general, my recommendation is that, especially when people are first making the transition, that you would let go of a lot of the things that look or feel like school, so that you can really begin to get reconnected to what your natural learning looks like.
Don't do that to people.
All right. Did that answer your question, Myra?
Yes, and how can I get more information, or what number can I call so I could like put my son in that program?
Sure. If you are interested in learning more about PAX Academy or enrolling in our school, you can do so on our website. I just dropped it in the chat for you, but for those of you that are listening on TikTok, it is www.paxacademy.org, paxacademy.org.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anyone else have any questions?
Yes,
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, hi, this is Damatella. I just enrolled my son in your PAX Academy for
Okay.
the 2024-2025 school year.
Awesome.
And I'm a little bit confused because I did review the videos, where the part where we submit the final grades, recommended subjects for grades K through 5. And I know that based on the state of Texas, they do require the math, reading, grammar, spelling, and a good citizenship class. But I didn't see any of those subjects, only the math. So what does that mean? Do I have to add the other subjects, or do they not have to be entered for the transcript for my son?
Yeah, so they're required subjects, they're not required classes, and that's a really important distinction. There are some states that have required subjects, not all states have required subjects, but there is not a single state that has a required class. So for example, reading, spelling, writing, all of those are a part of what we call English language arts. So it doesn't have to be like a separate item on their transcript to consider that you've taught your children that, or you've been practicing reading and writing with your kids.
Oh, okay. So they really don't need to be added at all on there at all.
Nope. So reading and writing, like I said, they're a part of English language arts.
Okay, thank you. And I have one more question. What is the, on the volunteer service, 80-hour voluntary service, is that mandatory?
No, it's not. We recommend that your children do community service hours for a couple different reasons. Number one, I think community service is an incredible opportunity for your children to build work experience, to build life experience, and to give back to the community. Volunteering is something that is very near and dear to my heart. I actually won an award when I was growing up for having the most volunteer service hours in our entire state. So I really enjoy giving students the opportunity to practice serving in their community in whatever ways are most meaningful for them. But the hours are not required. There are some additional opportunities that they can get if they do choose to do community service. And so one of those are access to scholarships. Another thing is that PAX Academy, we're actually registered as a certifying organization for the Presidential Volunteer Service Award. And this is a very prestigious award that's actually given out by the president once a year. And it's for children that are ages 5 and up all the way through adulthood. So we're able to actually qualify those hours for them if they would like to participate in that or try to reach that goal of having a certain number of volunteer service hours. And I can send you the link on our website where it explains a little bit more about the Presidential Volunteer Service Award, so you can learn more about kind of what's required if your children want to do that. That is not required though, but it is definitely something that I recommend.
All right, thank you. And the last question I have is, I read about the Gmail account, but I'm not understanding that. Should we have a Gmail account?
Yeah, so whenever you enroll with PAX Academy, one of the benefits that you get is that we will create a Gmail account for you. So it will be like angela.harders@paxacademy.org, for example. And then you're able to use your Gmail account to get access to tons of different exclusive discounts, a ton of different benefits. One of those actually is Canva. Are you familiar with Canva?
Yes, I am familiar with Canva, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I use Canva like for everything. I use it for social media. I publish books through Canva. I've done websites through Canva, all of our Facebook graphics, social media graphics, YouTube covers, everything, presentations. If I do like a PowerPoint presentation, all of it I do in Canva. And that program normally costs $120 a year per person. And so with your PAX Academy Gmail account, you'll be able to actually access that for free. So that's like an example of one of the benefits that you'd be able to get by enrolling in PAX Academy.
Okay, and so you'll provide us with that Gmail account later on down the road, or?
Yes, yeah, you should
Okay.
receive it within like 5 to 10 business days. We have to manually process it, and then it takes a couple days to like fully activate. So we'll send you out an email though whenever it's ready. Your students will get one, and then if you want one as a teacher, so you could have a teacher account, you can request one as well.
Okay, thank
And
you so
Gmail,
much. Yes,
to my
that's all I
knowledge,
needed. Thank you so much.
sorry, BC here. I'm a teacher and I believe that everybody can get a Gmail account, right? It's free. So just so you know, it should be easy process.
Yeah, so it's not a Gmail account like a
Oh.
gmail.com account.
Okay.
These are accounts. So for example, like when you teach with a public school system, for example, my email address when I'm a teacher with a public school isn't going to be angela@gmail.com, right? My
Right.
my Gmail account with the school will be my name at, and then what my school's name is. And so this was like a process that we had to go through with PAX Academy to be approved as a school with
Okay.
Google. And so when people enroll with us, then we give them a special Gmail account
Got
that
it.
shows that they are a student or a teacher with PAX
Affiliated.
Academy.
Understood.
And then
Okay.
they can
Okay,
use
great.
that. All kinds
And
of stuff.
probably you know this, but just to save money for PAX Academy, there is a free version of Canva. It has limitations, of course, as you know, but just as you know, I imagine. Thanks.
Yep, thank you. All right. And I see we've got a couple questions in the chat. All right. So Awilda said, how long does it take a kid to receive a high school diploma? It takes the same number of years as normal school. No, so actually, this is one of the beautiful things about being homeschooled is that you are able to go as fast or as slow as you want. There's nothing that says that you have to complete your school in 4 years. There's nothing that says that you have to even do a curriculum in order to complete your school in a specific number of years. There's nothing that says you have to take a certain number of classes in order to complete your schooling and get your high school diploma. So as a homeschooler, you have a lot of freedom and flexibility as far as when and how you would like your child to graduate. And so that's one of the things that I'll work really closely with you on to be able to help you achieve whatever your child's goals are. So if they're wanting to graduate a year early, I recommend whenever they get to high school that they would book a college and career consultation with me. And then during that meeting, we'll talk through a lot of those things of like, when are they wanting to graduate? How quickly are they wanting to graduate? And then how they want to earn the credits that they would need to graduate. All right, I see Michelle here says that she's from New York. Welcome, welcome, welcome from New York. We have the IHIP. Yes, that is correct. So yes, in New York, we do help you with filling those out. And we are also able to provide academic records from an accredited private school. So when you're doing the IHIP, you will have like guidance. I'm happy to meet with you and talk with you on how to fill it out. My goal though, of course, as any good teacher is that you will not need me, right? So my goal is that one day in the future, after you've had some, practice doing it, because I know New York can be pretty challenging, but once you've done it a couple times, I want you to really be empowered to know that you're able to do that on your own, and that you won't need me. But as long as you need me, I'm here. I'm happy to walk alongside you and make sure that you know exactly how to fill it out.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. Okay. Someone said that I had to log out and lost my TikTok. Okay. Okay.
So I had a question twice because if any of the questions before didn't show. So if you answered it, I never saw it. So I still had the same question, unfortunately.
No worries, no worries. I'm glad we got a chance to answer it. Thank you for asking again. Oh, and I saw Anita helped as well with putting my TikTok on there. Thank you, Anita. All right, Anita said, what is a sample day or a sample week for you and your family? So I have 2 kids. My daughter is 10 and my son is 5. When people want to ask about like what a typical day or a typical week will look like for us, I try to explain it. When you're unschooling, basically a typical day for us looks like your best Saturday ever. Or think about what you would do on your favorite vacation, and that's what it looks like for us. So for example, with me, when I'm on, think about my favorite Saturday, right? My favorite Saturday, we're normally hanging out at the house. We're maybe, cooking breakfast together, doing some chores. I enjoy reading books. So sometimes I'll sit on the couch and read a book or watch a movie together. My daughter right now, she's really interested in like graphic design and she's been teaching herself how to do animations. And so she spends a lot of time doing that. My son has been really fascinated recently with science experiments. And so we got like a science kit, and every day he asks me if we can do a new science experiment. We've run out of science experiments. So now he's, researching on YouTube about new science experiments that we can do, because that's something that interests him. And so really it just looks like that. We get to spend our day and our time doing the things that we love, doing things that we enjoy, and spending as much time as we want doing the things that we want. The way that our week is structured, so we don't really have like a specific schedule for the day. It's not like, every day we have to wake up at 8 a.m. and do X, Y, Z. We more have like a flow to our week. So what that looks like for us is usually during the school year, my kids go to an Unschool learning center on Monday. Because I am a single mom, so that is the only like the 1 4-hour chunk of time during the week that my kids are somewhere where they're safe and they're hanging out with other unschoolers, and then I use that time to work. And then on Tuesdays, we're usually here at the house together and everyone's kind of working on their own thing. Wednesdays are my day with the kids. So I normally am like, we call it kind of like our yes day. Whatever they want to do on that day, we do. And so, yeah, we just, whatever they're interested in that day, that's what we do. If they want to read books, we read books. If they want to play board games, we play board games. If they want to play video games, we play video games. If they want to go outside and ride a bike, we do that. If they want to go visit a friend, we do that. Whatever they're interested in that day, that's what we do. And then Thursday, my daughter has a math class actually that she wanted to take. She was really interested in learning about how they do math in China and Japan and in India, and with like the mental math with the abacus. And so she asked me if she could take a class to learn how to do that. And so that's what she does on Thursdays. And then every Friday, I plan field trips for us. So we're doing some kind of fun field trip where we're out like exploring around Washington, D.C. We go to museums, nature centers, we go to the beach. Yeah, that's kind of like our day to get out of the house and do something fun with other homeschoolers that are in our area. So that's kind of like what a typical week looks like for us. My kids are also, they enjoy playing sports, and they also are into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so they train every single day doing that as well. So we do that. And we try to go to the library usually like once a week. But that's kind of what a typical week looks like for us. All right. I see Rom asked in the chat, she said the diplomas are only for high school. So this is actually an interesting question that I didn't really think about until I started working more with like bilingual populations. And so, yes, in the United States, students only receive a diploma when they finish high school and they graduate. So the diploma is their symbol, their certificate, their proof that they have finished their high school education and they've earned their diploma. Prior to finishing high school, they don't receive diplomas. I know some people are like, oh, I got a kindergarten diploma or a certificate or whatever. But usually when we refer to a diploma, we're speaking specifically about graduation from 12th grade. Every year they do receive a report card, just like they would if they were, sorry, if you're enrolled in PAX Academy, you will receive a report card. If you would like, you don't have to. My daughter's enrolled in PAX Academy. She's 10 years old. She's never gotten a report card. She doesn't need one. Once she gets to high school, though, we will create a transcript and a report card for her. But truthfully, prior to high school, it's not really necessary. All right. Susanna said, I don't have a high school diploma. What other option do I have? Would it be under the religious exemption? I'm assuming you're, Susanna, that you live in Virginia. That sounds like a Virginia question. So if you don't have a high school diploma, you have a couple options. Number one, you can actually enroll yourself into PAX Academy and earn your high school diploma through us. We've had several parents who lived in states that required their parents to have a high school diploma. And so they enrolled with us and they were able to get their diploma. The nice thing is that when you're enrolling with us as an adult, most of the time you already have enough life experience to be able to get your diploma, so it doesn't take a lot of time. You literally could finish everything within a month. So yeah, that is one of the benefits of applying as an adult. The other option would be the religious exemption. So if you live in Virginia, and for those who aren't familiar, Virginia has a secondary option for homeschooling called the religious exemption, where you basically tell the government that you have a religious reason for not wanting to send your children to school. And if that is the case for you, then you are exempt from all of their additional testing and reporting and evaluation and all of those other requirements. All right, Ashley said, where is the Unschool Learning Center? So if you live in Maryland, I live in Maryland, the Unschool Learning Center is called Traditional Learning Community, and they're located in Catonsville. They're absolutely wonderful. I hope one day to have something similar on more on this side of the county. I live in Montgomery County, so Catonsville is a little bit of a hike for us, but so far it's been such a blessing to be able to go there and be surrounded by other unschoolers and with other people that understand, why we do what we do. So hopefully in the future we can provide something similar to that on this side of the county. But for now, I'm really excited about what we're doing here in Maryland with our weekly field trips. We actually, this year coming up, I'm in the process over the summer of training 10 different women who are going to be leading field trips in 10 different regions all over Maryland. And so if you live in Maryland, you will have a weekly field trip that will be close to you. Whereas this last year, I was the only person who was planning all of the field trips by myself. And so unfortunately, I couldn't plan a field trip to Ocean City every week. And so, yeah, I'm grateful now that we have some moms that live on the other side of the Bay Bridge that can help plan field trips for you guys. So. Let me see. Michelle said, as you're talking about your day with myself, having IHIP, could you explain where and how the things you described minus the unschooling center fits in? Yeah, so actually this is a really fun game that I started playing when I first started unschooling, because when we remove things that look like school, when we remove curriculum, when we remove workbooks, when we remove worksheets, when all of that stuff is gone, how do we see that our children are still learning? And the truth is, I wasn't used to seeing those kinds of things. And it really took a lot of practice for me to begin to look for the learning that my children were doing completely naturally all day, every day. So I'll give you an example. My daughter, I mentioned that she's interested in animations, right? So she loves animations, loves learning about animations, but part of what she's doing with her animations is she's telling stories. So she's creating these movies, she has characters, they talk, she has writing in it where she's writing out like the speech blurbs and stuff that they say back and forth. She's been practicing doing different like animations about different types of animals and things like that. So that would be like a science or a biology. She's also practicing technology, of course, because she's using her iPad, and she's actually using a professional graphic design program called Procreate. And like that's a program that adults use to do graphic design work. And she's 10 and she's been using that program for 3 years. So just in that one activity that she's doing, she's practicing reading, writing, spelling, math, science, technology, a little bit of history as well. So all of the different subjects are fitting into the things that she's already naturally doing. Even something as simple as like cooking breakfast together. That's something we do all the time, but we don't think about. In the morning we make eggs. We normally will have like eggs and frijoles or something. So we're talking about, breakfast that people would have in another country, because frijoles were not a part of my culture when I was growing up. But my best friend's from Guatemala and they have frijoles for breakfast. And so we talk about, the difference in our cultures, which is social studies. My daughter loves to help with cooking. Cooking is actually a science called molecular gastronomy, the science of cooking. And so she's practicing science. We talk about time, like how long it cooks to make the eggs. And so she's learning about how to tell time. She's learning about temperature. We have to go out and count the eggs that we're going to do. My daughter actually learned how to do like basic multiplication by skip counting eggs because we have backyard chickens. And so all of those kinds of things. At the beginning, it can be challenging to look for the learning that they're doing. But once you start kind of playing that game with yourself, and ask yourself, what is my child learning when, and then you could literally pick anything, and start to look for what is my child learning. All right. Irene said, hello, I'm very new in the understanding of homeschooling. If there's no curriculum, how do we ensure that our kids are meeting age-appropriate education levels, reading, math, science, etc., and college prep? This is a great question, Irene. Thank you for asking it. So there are a couple of different philosophies when it comes to approaching education with children. With a schoolish philosophy, a school mindset tells us that every child has to learn the same things in the same time, in the same way, in this specific location that looks like a school. They have to have a teacher, they have to have a curriculum, and that's how schools function. Schools function by having some authority figure, some adult that has no idea who your child is, no idea what they're interested in, no idea what they're passionate about. And they're going to dictate to your child what they learn, when they learn, how they learn, why they learn, where they learn, how they prove that they learned all day, every day for the rest of their lives. And I used to be a public school teacher. I have a master's degree, ironically enough, in bilingual education, curriculum, and instruction. And one of the things that I observed as a public school teacher is the fact that over time, when I was teaching students in kindergarten, they would come into kindergarten. Some kids were terrified. Some kids were absolutely terrified to be there in kindergarten. They didn't want to leave home. They cried like for weeks. It was a very traumatic experience for them to like leave mom for the first time. But then there were other kids that were really excited to be there. They were happy, they were passionate, they were curious, they loved learning, they asked a million questions. Think about any 5-year-old kid that right? They're happy, they're excited, they want to explore everything, they want to get into everything, they want to move their body around and explore the world around them and ask why a million times and figure things out, right? They're natural scientists. And then over time, I slowly observed that usually around 3rd grade, it was almost like a light switch just kind of went off in their brains. And I don't know if you've ever witnessed this. If you've seen this before, please feel free to comment and let me know. But it was something that I started seeing over and over and over and over again, that these kids that were once so passionate and excited and curious and wanting to learn all the things, there came a point where that just kind of died in them. And no longer were they excited to come to school. They became very apathetic about schoolwork. They would ask me questions like, is this going to be on the test, right? Like there was that natural intrinsic love of learning was just gone. And I started seeing that happening over and over and over and over. And around the time that I was a public school teacher, I started reading and learning more about how children learn and the best way for children to learn. I read books by John Taylor Gatto, who is a teacher. He wrote a book called Dumbing Us Down. I highly recommend that if you have not read that book, that you read that one. Dumbing Us Down is a book that he wrote as a teacher, talking about the way that the school system functions and how it is intentionally dumbing down the students. And as I was reading his book, it was like everything he was saying was everything that I was seeing in my classroom every day. And I remember reading this book and just thinking, I don't want to see this happen to my daughter. I don't want to see this happen to my son. My daughter was 4 years old, 5 years. She had just turned 5 at the time when I first started learning about this philosophy called unschooling. And I knew that I didn't want to see my daughter go through that. I wanted my daughter to preserve her natural love of learning for as long as possible. And so I started asking myself, what is the best way to educate a child? Is the best way to encourage my child to love reading? Am I going to be able to do that if I force her to read books that she doesn't like, or books that she doesn't care about, or books that are too hard for her, or books that aren't interesting to her? Like, how does that work, right? And so I started asking a lot of those questions, like in the questions that you mentioned there. You said, how do we know that they're meeting age appropriate education levels? Who decided what was an age appropriate education level? Who decided that? Who says what they have to learn when they're 5 or 6 or 7 or 10? So when I started asking myself those deeper questions, it was like this onion that just started unfolding for me. And I really started thinking about, like, why are we doing what we do? And around that same time, shortly after that, I was actually teaching Algebra 2. And again, I was confronted with that same idea. My job as a teacher is to force these 16, 17, 18-year-old kids who hate math to make them learn math that they will never have to use again for the rest of their life, ever. And I say that because in order for me to teach them Algebra 2, I had to teach it to myself because I hadn't used it in 15 years, right? So was that really the best investment of their time, of their youth, for me to try to force and coerce them to learn stuff that wasn't relevant to their lives, that they would never use again? You know, a lot of those questions. And so I just started kind of thinking through, like, why do we do this the way that we do? Is there a better way? And that's what led me to unschooling. And so I know that this idea is very new for you. You may have never heard of this before. That's totally fine. 5 years ago, like I said, I had no idea what unschooling was. And that's why I do these calls and talk with people about it, because after experimenting with unschooling for the last 5 years and interviewing hundreds of grown unschoolers, hundreds of unschooling families, I can say without a doubt, unschooling is the best way to educate a child if they have a loving and supportive and present parent. So yeah, all of those things. So really it comes down to who is in control of their education, right? Do we want our children to learn because someone else is forcing and coercing them and telling them what to do? Or do we want our children to learn because they are taking ownership of their own education? They are deciding what, when, where, why, and how they're going to learn best. And I think it's something that we just know intuitively, like, you know, when you think to yourself, how do you learn something new, right? Really think about it. Like, when was the last time that you learned something new and how did you do it? You know, for me, if I wanted to learn something new, I'm not going to sign up for a class. That will probably not be my go-to. I will probably be Googling, or I will probably look for a really cool YouTube video. or I might go browse and search for something on TikTok. But my go-to would not be to sign up for, the next college class or whatever. Yeah, I just wouldn't. There's millions of things that your kids can learn in the world, and not everyone has to learn the same thing. So when you can start to let go of those ideas that my child has to learn X, Y, Z by this age because someone somewhere in some office or some political, arena just made that up. Like none of that exists in reality. So I hope that helps. I know it was a long-winded answer, but April Pierre said, if my child is enrolled in PAX Academy, would I still have to fill out the intent to homeschool form? So it depends on the state that you're in. So in most states, when you register in PAX Academy, like I said, you're legally considered a private school student, not a homeschool student. And so you don't necessarily have to fill out an intent to homeschool. If you are located here in Maryland, we are registered here in Maryland as a private school. So, excuse me, so when you would enroll with PAX Academy, then you wouldn't have to fill out the intent to homeschool form here in Maryland. But like I said, that will depend on what state you're in. How are you going to evaluate my kids in order to know if they're ready for college or university or to get a job? Do you need proof like pictures, videos of what they're learning every day? So no, you as the parent are responsible for supervising your child's education. So that's going to be up to you. You're going to decide when you believe that your child is ready, and I'll be there to partner with you and talk with you through that. What that will look like is usually by the time they get to be in high school, we'll be having college and career consultations, and I'll do meetings as well with you that will talk them through kind of different options that they have that they might want to consider as far as going to college, how they want to best prepare. So for example, if college is something that your children want to do, like if they want to become, I don't know, if they want to become a doctor, right? If they decide, hey, I want to become a doctor, then obviously college is going to be in their future. So then we kind of work backwards, right? If you want to become a doctor, it means you got to go to college. If you want to go to college, it means you're going to have to, some colleges require them to take the SAT, for example. Okay, if you're going to take the SAT, that means you're going to have to know some algebra. And then now comes the question. All right, in order to become a doctor, we're working our way back. We know that you've got to learn some algebra. How do you want to do that? And that's the difference between unschooling and regular schooling, right? Regular schooling says, I'm going to make you learn algebra regardless of if you're going to need it, regardless of if it's going to be interesting to you, regardless if you're ready for it. And I'm going to force and coerce you to learn algebra because you're 13, right? Whereas with unschooling, it's the opposite. It says, okay, what do you need to accomplish in your life to be successful in what you want to do? And then once you figure that out, how do you want to go about doing that? So, yeah.
Do you or any of the families mix a curriculum into unschooling, like how to teach algebra?
Yeah,
like
so
could I or you or any of your families like use a curriculum for that, because I don't know where to start teaching algebra.
Yeah. So if you want to take a class, for example, if your kid is like, hey, I want to learn algebra and I don't want to, learn on my own, or I don't want to do this, I want to take an online class. We do have online classes that they can take, and there are tons of different online resources that they're able to use. So there is curriculum, there are like online classes that are available for them, but nothing is required, if that makes sense. So like, it's not like a normal school where it's like, okay, today you have algebra from 9 to 10. No, like if he wants to study algebra, he could finish, and actually we've had students do this. I've had students that have finished an entire year of algebra, and they did an online class and they finished the whole thing in 6 weeks. So, they can go as fast or slow as they want to. They can use whatever resource or not use whatever resource that they want to. Some students want to take an online class. Awesome, they could do it that way. Some students are like, no, you know what? I don't want to take an online class. I'd rather just take the AP test and test out of it. And so some people do that, like they'll just study for a couple weeks, take the test, pass, earn the credits, and move on. There are some people who say, you know what, I'm not really good with online learning. I need to hire a private tutor or someone who can help me like in person. And they might, find someone who be willing to help them out. Or, I mean, there's so many different ways that they can learn what they need to learn. But again, the difference is they're the ones that are choosing it. Your child is the one that is choosing what, when, where, why, and how they learn. All right, I see. Ivan said, is this diploma valid, or is it the same as a traditional diploma? So yes, homeschool diplomas, private school diplomas, public school diplomas, they are all valid. They are all valid. And Yeah. That being said, it is important too that you can also look at whatever the requirements are for the university that your kids are interested in going to, because just because you have a diploma doesn't mean that you'll be guaranteed admission into any college or university. So that's again part of the high school like preparation part that we do with you, is that we'll meet with your teenager and talk with them. If your child wants to go to Harvard, there are certain things that they're going to have to do differently than a kid who's wanting to just go to their local community college. And so their transcript is going to have to look different. They're going to have to prepare themselves in a different way in order to get into Harvard versus the kid who's just going to community college. Not that there's anything wrong with community college. And I think, you know, a lot of students have a lot of really great success going to community college too. But yeah, so that is definitely something that's going to be unique for every student, but that's going to be the case whether they're in a private school or they're homeschooled or they're, you know, going to a traditional public school. All right, Susanna said, well, I understand I can enroll in PAX Academy and obtain the diploma. I want to know is how much is the cost apart from the $350 registration fee? Yeah, great question. So the registration fee is $350 for one student. Right now, we actually have a special going on that it's $600 for a family of up to 3 students for the whole year. So that's the initial tuition and registration fee. Once students get to be in high school, I recommend that you do a college and career consultation with me. That is optional, but I highly, highly, highly recommend it. The college and career consultations, I do those separately, like outside of PAX Academy. They're $200 an hour, but during that meeting, I will literally save you tens of thousands of dollars. So I make sure that I make it worth it for you. But for students that are enrolled in PAX Academy, you get a 50% discount. So that one would be an additional $100 for that meeting. And usually I recommend that when they're in high school, they do that meeting once a year, maybe twice a year, if they need to, but usually once a year is fine. And then the diploma itself, so there's a diploma fee, it costs $50, and then you choose whatever you would like for shipping, and that's it. Will colleges accept this diploma as any other high school diploma? Yes. Any suggestions on books to read for parents to gain more insights on the unschooling perspective? Oh, that is a great question. Yes, I have a bunch of different books that I would recommend. I love to read. So some of the books are Dumbing Us Down is a good one. Another one is Unschool. I'm sorry?
I said I don't mean to interrupt, but can you list these in your comments so that
Oh, sorry. I accidentally muted you, Michelle. Can you repeat that?
can you list these in your comments or list them somewhere so we could find them?
Yes, I actually have a free ebook and I'll share with you guys the link for the free ebook. But in the ebook, it has my list of all of my like favorite unschooling resources. So you guys can read the book, read the ebook, and then get access to all of those too. Let me hold on. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, I'll drop the link here in the chat for you. So that's a link. You can like type your information in there and then it will send you the ebook to your email. But yeah, there's a bunch of different stuff in there. Sorry, I'm looking at these questions again.
So can you share them with us or no?
What?
I said, so can you share the names of the books or are you just going to put them in the chat?
Yes, I'll share the names with you. So Dumbing Us Down was the first one that I read. Dumbing Us Down is a good one. I'm trying to think. Free to Learn is another good one. How Children, actually, we'll do Teach Your Own is another good one. Unschooled. Also, I wrote a book as well called Tales of a Toxic Teacher. I think that one's a great one. Trying to think of some other ones. There's a podcast called the Exploring Unschooling podcast. That was a great resource that was really helpful for me when I first started unschooling. The lady who does that podcast, she has been unschooling longer than I've been alive. And every week she interviews another unschooling family. And that helped me so much with just understanding how unschooling could look. You know, obviously it's going to look different for every family because every child is different. So every child's educational experience is going to be different. And listening to those stories was really helpful for me. And she was actually the inspiration for me to start my own podcast called the Peaceful World Schooling Podcast. So both of those podcasts I think will be really great and a huge blessing for you guys as you're learning more about the unschooling philosophy. Oh, another one that is really good is called Punished by Rewards. Punished by Rewards is a book where he basically talks about, that's by Alfie Kohn. He talks about this idea that when we bribe students with incentives like good grades and stickers and awards and all of this other really meaningless stuff, it actually takes away their intrinsic motivation. And so that book is that one's a thicker read, but it's a really, really powerful read. Let me see if I can find my list here. Hold on a second. Here we go. I'll stick in the chat for you guys as well. This is the link to my Amazon list where I have all of my favorite unschooling books. You can see them all linked in there. All right, so if you check out the chat, it will be there. Yeah, most of them are available on Amazon. And actually, a lot of them you can also get at your local library too. All right. Does anyone else have any questions?
I have a couple.
Yeah.
Where can we find your podcast at?
Oh, my podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and the video version is on my YouTube channel. And I can send that to you as well.
Okay, and so for New York, we have to have I feel like it's called the IHIP.
Yeah, the
Um,
IHIP.
And then we have to do in grade 4 through 6, every other year testing, every year 9 through 12. And most people I've seen use the CAT test. How are we ensuring that they have actually learned everything at the level because the state requires it?
Yeah, so if you live in a state that does require testing, like New York, I recommend the CAT test. And actually this year, because testing isn't required where I live here in Maryland, but we do have several families that are enrolled with us that are from New York, and I wanted to see what the CAT test was like because I've never had to do it, never seen it. And so I asked my daughter if she would be willing to like try it out for me and see what it was like. So the CAT test you can actually do from the comfort of your own home. And it's an online test. It's not timed. Ironically enough, so my daughter did this test. Again, she's never done any kind of like formal testing before. She got all of the reading questions right except for one. And then she did great with all of the math, like the arithmetic math. So like the addition and subtraction, multiplication. They didn't cover division in the 4th grade test, but that was what she did. But she didn't know how to do fractions, which was really interesting. And so when they had an entire section that was about fractions, like multiplying fractions and dividing fractions and stuff like that. And it was interesting because, a lot of people see that and they would be like, oh my gosh, like my kid's behind, they don't know fractions. And that wasn't my response at all. Like when I saw that and I saw that they were testing her on fractions and she didn't know how to do that, to me, the only thing that says is that that's a skill that hasn't shown up in her real life yet. And that's okay. And so when we got to that section of the test, it was like I said, the whole section was about fractions. She was like, I don't know how to do this. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll teach you. And so I taught it to her and she did the test and like it wasn't hard. So you have a lot of flexibility in that sense too. Like if there's something that comes up that your kid's like, oh, I don't know how to do this, then you help them, you teach them.
We're required to at least have a 33% composite score.
Mm-hmm.
With missing that whole section, like it's something that just hasn't been learned yet, like naturally.
Yeah.
Do you think she would have still scored above the 33rd percentile?
So the test had like 10 different sections. I don't know what she would have scored if I hadn't taught it to her so that she could do it. Obviously she wouldn't have scored well on that section at all because she didn't know it, but it was multiple choice. So she probably would have gotten a couple, but I know that she didn't know the content to be able to do that test, like that portion of the test, at least independently. But again, like when you're doing the CAT test, you can do it from home, and a lot of homeschooling and unschooling parents do that. Like if their kid's stuck on something, then you help them. I mean, you can do whatever you think is best. If you want to just kind of like leave them on their own and have them get whatever like their score would be if you didn't help them, you can. But there's going to be like 0 times in their real life where they would have to take a test on something that isn't necessary for them, that you wouldn't be able to use a resource to help you learn or prepare for that, if that makes sense. So, and they also do have practice tests as well that you could do before the actual one. So that would be something that I would recommend too, is like, if you're going to do a practice test, then you could do the practice test with them. And then if you find that they're struggling with something or they don't understand something, then you help them with it. And then you can let them do like the full test, you know, on their own if you want to do it that way too.
How soon before the CAT test well, so we have to do 4 quarterly reports. We're one of the hardest states to do homeschool.
I know. I don't envy you at all.
So we're required to do the IHIP, the 4 quarterly reports.
Yep.
And the end of the year.
Yeah.
When would we, or I myself, do the practice CAT testing to know what the child had to learn?
Maybe
Yeah.
you should go, is it the back door? Why don't you go up and let her know?
So you can do it really whenever you want to. If you would, truthfully, when my daughter did the test, like that, the fraction section was the only section that she couldn't do independently. And literally like I worked with her for maybe an hour and then she did it. So it wasn't like we had to prepare for this for like months for her to be able to do it, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, if you want to try to like do a practice test, you know, a couple months, maybe do a practice test in like December or something. And that way you'll have an idea. Or you could do a practice test at the beginning of the year and just so she has like a feel for what it will be like for her. And then you could do another one like at the end of the year, like do the full one at the end of the year. But
Okay.
like, you know, the test, and this is the case of any time that you do testing, right? Like anytime that you do testing, they're going to cover infinitely less than you would do if you were doing like a full curriculum anyway. And so yeah, that's why like the, you know, the testing piece is it's interesting. I think she definitely would have scored way over like the 33% overall. Like I said, like the fractions piece was one of like maybe it was like 8 to 10 different sections. So that was the only one that she didn't know.
But you feel like she would have still scored over the 33 percentile composite of all of them?
Yeah, for sure.
And do you help fill out the quarterly reports also through PACS or no?
Yep. Yeah. If you guys need help with the quarterly reports, I'm happy to work with you guys to do that. Like I said, my goal is that you don't, you know, that you wouldn't have to need me to do it. And actually another thing that you can do too to help with doing the quarterly reports, especially if you're an unschooler, is using ChatGPT is really helpful. If you're not familiar with ChatGPT, you can literally go in there and say, hey, type me a quarterly report that meets New York standards addressing these interests of my child. And you can put, you know, whatever your child's interested in, if they're interested in Legos or farm animals, I mean, whatever your kids are interested in, put that into ChatGPT and they'll spit you out with all of like the standards and objectives and all that other stuff that you can use to put on the iHip.
Now, you always have said multiple times that your goal is for us to be able to do it on our own.
Yeah.
And that's fine for some people, but like New York, I said, is one of the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
Would you still continue if I need your support?
Of course, if you want to work with me for every single iHip and quarterly report from now until graduation, I'm more than welcome. Yeah.
I just wanted to hope I wasn't not catching on to what I should be or something because they're so strict.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah. And like I said too, you'll also be able to get like reports from us. And there are some instances as well where they'll let like me do the evaluation because I have a master's degree. And so I'll do the evaluation for you. And then you can include my evaluation in your quarterly reports, as well as like the report card that they'll get from PACS Academy as well.
Okay.
It's not as scary or intimidating as I think.
That's what everybody says. They try to scare their families away from it.
Yeah. When I saw the HSLDA website that it's like New York is bright red, I was like, oh no, you know. But then when I started working with families that are doing it there, I'm like, no, it's not as scary as what they're trying to make it seem to be. I really do think that they're trying to just like scare parents and make you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And it's really, it's not as hard or as scary as what they're trying to make it be.
And they're not kicking people out. We moved from New York. They're not like getting rid of homeschoolers and saying you can't do this anymore. They're accepting what is, the parents just have to learn the process.
Yeah. Thank you for chiming in, Anita. Do you have any other tips as someone who was in New York?
No, we were only there 2 years. So
Oh, okay.
no, yeah. And it was right at the start of when they were changing everything. So now it's a lot different than it used to be, but
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that little bit. All right, and then I see here Shantice, I think. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name properly. Shantice said, my daughter's going into 3rd grade this year. I'm curious about homeschooling her. What steps would I need to take? We live in Montgomery County. Awesome. So I also live in Montgomery County. So nice to meet another local on here. So basically the steps that you would need to take in order to homeschool her in Montgomery County or anywhere in Maryland is that you're in Maryland, you're going to have to submit what's called a notice of intent to homeschool form to your county. And I'll send you a copy of our website. It has all of the notice of intent to homeschool forms hyperlinked for you. So you fill out this form. It's a 2-page form and asks for your name, her birth date, her address, your phone number, basic information like that. And then on the 2nd page, actually, I'll pull it up and share it with you. Give me 1 second. I'm going to try to share my screen here so you can see what this looks like. And I'm going to zoom in so you can actually see it. All right, so this is the home instruction notification form for Montgomery County. Every county in Maryland has their own kind of version of this form. But like I said, the beginning information is very basic information. Your name, address, or sorry, the name of your child and her address, your name, your phone number, their other parent or guardian's name, phone number. And if they've attended school before, you'd indicate that the ethnicity and race stuff is all optional. Here in section 2, you have to check this box that says that you've read COMAR. So COMAR are the regulations for homeschooling in Maryland. So you click that and say, yes, I've read that. And then for option number 2, you would pick if you want your child to participate in standardized testing, or if you don't. I pick no. I don't need my kid to do standardized testing because we're not comparing them to anyone else in the public school system. And then the section 3, this is the most important section. If you are homeschooling in Maryland, you have 2 choices. You can either do option A, which means that you're going to be supervised by the county. If you choose that option, you will have to do a portfolio review with the county at least twice a year. Okay. Most of the time, the portfolio reviews are totally fine. Nothing terrible happens. But I actually started working with homeschoolers because a family reached out to me because they did not have a good portfolio review. And not only were the parents threatening to remove their right to homeschool and basically force their daughter to go back to public school where she was being terribly bullied and harassed and abused, but they were also threatening to charge the parents with educational neglect and remove the child from the home entirely through CPS. It was terrifying. After seeing them walk through that and then hearing some other horror stories from other families in the county, I was like, nope, I am not. We're not going to be doing any of that. I don't need that kind of stress or anxiety in my life. I really want to just be able to like do what I do with my kids and not have to deal with the stress or anxiety of dealing with a county or having someone who doesn't understand homeschooling or doesn't understand unschooling that's evaluating us. And so that's why I recommend going with option B. And this is the reason why I started. Option B is what they call the umbrella option. And so I started a homeschool umbrella here in Maryland. It's called the Peaceful World Schoolers umbrella. We are an unschool friendly umbrella, which means that we do not require any kind of portfolio or anything like that. So you are able to invest your time in the ways that are most meaningful to you and your kids without having to stress about keeping track of stupid worksheets and workbooks and all of that other kind of like stuff that not all of us are doing. And so yeah, so you can pick option B and then enroll with us. You've put our name here, Peaceful World Schoolers, our address, and then that's it. So this is the form. You submit that to your county, and then you can go to our website. All right, PAX Ministries. And then this is the website for our umbrella, and I'll be sure to share that in the chat with you. And then you just click here where it says register now. Like I said, if you're interested in finding your county's homeschool form, you can come down to our FAQ section, and right here where it says, how can I start homeschooling in Maryland? You can see these are all the different counties here in Maryland, and all of the forms are hyperlinked here for you. So you can just click on them right there, and then you submit that. Here's our name and address here where you'll put that on the form on that second page that I showed you. And that's it. Peaceful World Schoolers umbrella, it costs $100 per family per year. And then the third option that we have for families in Maryland is also PAX Academy, which is the private school that we were talking about earlier. So that's another option as well. But if you're looking to just do the homeschooling option, I would definitely recommend joining an umbrella like Peaceful World Schoolers. So, yeah. All right. Did that answer your question, Shantice? I hope so. Okay. All right, good. Great. Awesome. It is almost 9 o'clock, so I think we've got time for one more question. Anyone else have any other questions that they wanted to address? No? No other questions today?
Do you think it is, this isn't specific to you, it's we need 990 hours in New York State.
Mhm.
Is that pretty easy to get, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it always makes me laugh when I see those kind of like requirements where they're like, you have to teach your kids for 4 hours a day, and it's like when you understand a self-directed learning philosophy, when you understand natural learning, our kids are learning all the time, all day, every day. It just doesn't look like me forcing you to sit at the lunch table and do this workbook, right? Like it doesn't look like that. My kids are learning all the time, whether that be again like us cooking breakfast together as a family or cuddling up right before we go to bed and reading a book together. Like all of that counts from the moment we wake up until the moment that we go to bed. So for us as unschoolers, because our learning is happening all the time, like the whole 180-day requirement, okay.
Yeah, we have
Yeah,
that.
they're doing that, so it's not, and again, no one's asking you to be like, what did you do for 4.5 hours a day for 180 days a year? Like no one's asking you to like prove, your lesson plans and workbooks and worksheet. Like no one's asking for that kind of a thing, right? Like you just basically like sign a thing saying like, yes, my kids learned for 990 hours a year, which they did.
Oh, is that all? You just have to sign that they have? You don't have to provide how much for
Yep.
each subject area?
Nope. You just signed saying like, my kids did 180 hours a day or hours this year. Yes. My kids did 990 hours or more. Yes. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Well, it is 9 o'clock. So thank you guys so much for being here with me. It was such a pleasure to speak with you all. I do these on the last Wednesday of every month, like I said. If you do live in Maryland, I would love to have you guys come and hang out with us. We actually do field trips every single week. And actually this Friday, we're going to be going to Beaver Dam. So if you have not been to Beaver Dam, make sure that you join us for that field trip because it's one of my favorites. The kids are going to be able to do like cliff jumping and rope swings and all kinds of really cool, fun things while they're swimming there. But I'll drop the link for our Facebook group into the chat. If you live in Maryland, please feel free to join this one. If you don't live in Maryland, sorry. Unfortunately, I'm not planning field trips outside of Maryland. But if you're in Maryland, DC, Virginia area, please feel free to join our Facebook group. And I'd love to meet you guys at one of our field trips that we do. That would be a lot of fun. And if you live somewhere else, please feel free to, reach out if you have any other questions. We have a WhatsApp group as well, where if you want to get connected with families outside of Maryland that are also doing unschooling, you're welcome to do that too. All right. Thank you guys for being here. I hope this was helpful. It's so great to see everyone. Thank you for the applause, Jasmine. I appreciate it. Erica said, thank you. This was so helpful. I'm glad. It makes me happy to know that this is helpful for you guys. Right. Oh, okay, so since this is done, if no one else has any other questions in here, I'll go ahead and start taking some questions from TikTok Live. So hello, everybody on TikTok. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We're talking about unschooling, which is a type of homeschooling where basically we live and learn as though school does not exist. It is one of my favorite things to talk about. I see First Fruits is sending love from New Zealand. Thank you. So great to see you. Sending love back to you from Washington, D.C. Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. If you guys have any questions about what it is like to live and learn without school, feel free to drop your comments in either in the chat here on the Zoom with me, or feel free to drop them as well on the live on TikTok, and I'll be happy to answer them. And I'm going to stop the recording.